Hello, welcome to Loremaster's Lair. I'm your Loremaster, here today to cover another topic. This is part informational video, but also part goodbye. Don't worry, I'm not going anywhere. However, we have our Remaster just around the corner, and with it, we are losing spell schools. So today, to send them off, we will be looking at magic in general. Spell schools, traditions, and even a peek into the future. With all that, let's get started. For my research, spell schools originated from D&D 2nd edition, or at least that's the earliest I can find where the wizard chose a specific school to master. Right away, we were given the famed 8, which we all know by heart: Abjuration and Evocation, Conjuration and Transfiguration, Illusion and Enchantment, Divination, and Necromancy. Let's examine each of them while we are here. First is Evocation, the simplest of the schools. While many speculate that it is one of the first spell schools discovered by wizards trying to copy nature, it is clear that when it comes to types of damage, there are few equals. It has a reputation of being the simplest school, but when what you want is to make others hurt, you do not need to complicate things too much. On the other hand, Abjuration is the school which focuses on protection. It is much more complicated, as it requires one to learn much about the other schools of magic in order to find ways to counter said magic. You skimp on your studies, you'll find yourself useless when confronted with the unknown. Third, we have Conjuration, the power over space and matter. The school can be broken down into 3 sub-schools: creation of something new, summoning, which actually creates a copy of something already in existence, and teleportation, which is the actual movement of something from one place to another. On one hand, it brings strength in numbers, but on the other hand, one can go overly reliant on others, making any fights forced solo nightmares. But on even another hand is Transmutation, which is not the creation of anything new, but the use of elements already in existence. This is one of the most versatile magics, allowing a multitude of changes one can do to a variety of living and non-living creatures. Of course, Transmutation's ultimate goal is to find a way to make changes permanent, to leave a lasting mark upon the world around them. Then, we have Illusions, a magic greatly debated. We all know it creates illusions, but how? Does it cloak someone in light and thus to appear one way to all? Or does it affect the inner workings of one's mind, controlling the senses as opposed to onto the sight? Regardless, when it comes to messing with the world without leaving an actual trace, illusion is the go-to. But speaking of the mind, enchantment does mess with the mind and emotions of the target. However, it has been known that those who toy with emotions in turn become detached from their own emotions. The longer one lives under a mask, after all. Next we have the big one, Necromancy. The one everyone knows because of lichdom. However, as much as some systems try to change the spell list, Necromancy is the power to control both negative and positive energy. This is where one will find their healing spells, not just the ability to make skeletons dance. And finally, the Divination. This school, again, can be broken down into smaller subsets. Prediction, to read the future. Lore speak, to read the past. Detection, to find what you are looking for. Scrying, to place one's senses elsewhere, and new revelation to see things as they truly are. That is the schools, but that's only part of what magic is. We also need to understand the traditions of magic. These are older than spell schools, tracing themselves to the first edition of D&D, where the three playable characters were magic user, priest, and fightman. Our good friend Fightman. So, since the beginning, there have been at least one magical user whose mastery comes from study, who comes from directly experimenting with the universe and recording your findings, or the findings of others. Arcane is a long and respected tradition, using mediums, whether spellbooks, familiars, or one's own blood, to cast magic, without any outside influence. Just one's own skills placed on clear display. While on the other hand, the priests evolved into those who get their magic from others, the religious casters. Of course, one side of it continues to grow until it became the caster we know today, the cleric, and its close family. Its praise of the deities or unwanted attention from them, granting them not just the powers of a magic user, but also additional boons given to by each individual deity. On the other hand, those who were connected to nature first find themselves as a subclass in D&D 2nd edition, have grown to where Pathfinder 2e has made them a separate tradition, using the forces of the wild like the clerics their gods. The nature casters all show a deep connection, giving them magic best suited to live peacefully alongside nature. It is still the smallest tradition, only one real magic caster, through the druid, but we welcome the dabblers and look forward to what the future might bring. Then we have the history of the 3rd tradition, or 4th in the case of Pathfinder 2e. It was D&D 3rd edition that first began using psionics as an tradition, based on powers that come from the mind, not just words, incantations, and movements. So too did Pathfinder 1e follow with psychic magic, adding in ghost and other more occult practices. Which is why the 4th tradition of occult was not a surprise, but it does have a caveat to it. Upon examination of occult magic, it is not just psychic magic under a different coat of paint. The tradition comes from the human collective, the intertwining of human culture and consciousness being what is tapped into. Some believe it is just forbidden rites, which ends up with any of them meeting the great-grandfather before their time. The true application of psychic magic, true application of occult magic, is understanding the interwoven connection of human consciousness and realizing how to tap into it as a weapon. Of course, there is an easy way to explain the 4 traditions. Both arcane and nature typically deal with shaping the world outside oneself, while traditions of religion and occult deal with what is inside. In turn, arcane and occult deal with knowledge and the mind, while religion and nature deal with the soul. And before anyone says it, yes, emotions come from the mind. The heart just pumps blood. Thank you. And that takes us to the end of Pathfinder. But Starfinder has magic too. Though by the time of the Pack World, schools have more or less faded away, leaving each magic path divided into careers over traditions. The mystics are the ones who we know the most, being the inheritors of magical traditions from pre-gap past. They most outwardly worship deities to gain their powers, but the elemental planes and ancestral memories are also listed as valid places to be granted power from. Of course, being most outwardly religious in nature usually has one pegged as the healer, but there are many professions which a mystic can find respect, even in a universe which relies more on technology. On the other hand, to be a successful technomancer, you need to be willing to always chase after something new. Technomancy is the integration of magic into a world where technology is king, using magic in the same way one would command a machine or run a program. Therefore, while mystics have always existed, it is the technomancer who is the most strongly integrated into modern society, and those who find it easiest to make a profit off their powers, even if it is just as an IT tech. No one said magic is always glamorous. Then we have the more unusual ones, the ones that come from the advanced pseudosciences of the Packworld era, which of course means it is time for Witchwarper. Witchwarper's powers come from their connection to parallel timelines, something that people know exists, but regular science has been unable to prove or interact with. Witchwarpers, for one reason or another, are able to bring pieces of a parallel universe and forcibly overlay it with the world around them. Of course, 90% of the time, someone who is able to change the world like that would seem suspicious. But being a Witchwarper comes with boundless confidence and charisma, and leads many people to trusting you, despite what their better judgment says. And finally, the rarest of the magic users in the Starfinder universe, we have the Precog. Precog are the extension and the collection of psychic magic in the Pathfinder. They are casters who gain the power from being connected to an anchor, a certain incident, allowing them to see outside of traditional linear time. They technically can use their magic with just a stare, and no words or actions needed. So they are likely to be distrusted by those around them, especially those who do not like fate making them feel like they do not control their own actions. Being a precog is a lonesome and likely traumatic experience. And that brings us to the end of today's video. Again, I understand why Paizo is adapting things to escape the old jail. It's still sad to see some of our old friends go. See you later, Spell Schools. It has been fun. Either way, we'll be doing something more upbeat next week. Maybe. Either way, see you then.